What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Immortal Minds. And let's get rid of that. Okay, cool. Right, so as you can see, we've got Sakura Storm versus Sentinels today, and I'm using a different camera, so it's not fully optimized. It actually fell off the stand earlier, so that was a bit annoying, but here we are. So there's so many games to go through from this first strike tournament so far, and it's really hard to know where to begin with a lot of the matches. So we sent out some tweets to see some things that people are interested in. I know the 100 Thieves game as well was something that people really wanted to see, but I'd already sort of selected this one. So maybe we'll do some additional episodes if there's just loads of games to kind of go through that are interesting. But I thought this one was particularly cool to begin with, just because for Sentinels to have such a poor attacking half against Sakura Storm, as you can see, the end score here is Sentinels only picking up 4 rounds. I think a couple of them were eco victories as well, where it was kind of won on the clutch. That means that Sakura Storm were kind of putting themselves in better positions most of the time. So I wanted to look at that and get a better picture. So good morning to all of you guys, or good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are. I don't know. And let's jump into this one. So go back here. All right. I'll pull up my notes on the other machine. Okay. So, and also let me know in the chat if like anything production related is a little bit off or something like that. If like if the levels are off or anything like that. Right. Okay. Normally I have Mike to lean on for all the tech stuff. So here we go into the first rounds. And I think Ascent's an interesting one because, again, it's very reminiscent of Dust 2 in terms of how some of the rotations work for the defenders and how you're supposed to respond against the attacker's aggression. So, the first thing I think that's interesting to note here is that I feel like for Sentinels, they're doing pretty much the standard. And whenever you're playing a team that you haven't played against before, and maybe it's a team you don't even, you know that they're unproven, essentially, or insofar as the tier 1 is concerned, certainly unproven. They don't have much experience playing against you, I would imagine. I don't know if that is absolutely the case here, but I can only assume that Sentinels are not, frequently scrimming Sakura Storm. Again, could be wrong. Correct me if anyone knows that information. But you want to play a safe style against a team like this. You want to try to play your defaults out. You want to try to just win through creating as many advantages as possible. And you don't want to play many gambly kind of situations. So Sentinels should be a team that's pretty well geared to do that. So, looking at the first round of attack here, they do opt to go for this B main approach. And we can go back a little bit. And I think it's going to be interesting to highlight some of the early round utility as always. It's very indicative of what teams intend to do. So we see Dapper, throws the trip there on Gelato. Making sure that if there is an A main push, and as we can see, there's 3 players there for Sakura Storm that are, looking to possibly do that, but they fall back after they discern that there is no aggression there. But, all the bases are covered. We got the cam there as well in case there was any, peaks in mid, and then they progress through onto this control upper towards the market position. So pretty standard stuff here, and moving into the site against Killjoy and Sova is always a difficult task, but this is a very difficult position against top level teams that are kind of coordinating the pushes in, and so we're going to see that Sick is going to go down, and Orca there at the back of the site is going to somehow get himself 2 kills. So at that point, a huge amount of damage is done, and you're starting to think that Sakura Storm has some good skill on the team, being able to pull that off. And again, it comes down to coordination at this point, and I think Sakura Storm understands some of the fundamentals here in terms of how they want to do the spacing here and how they want to attack. They actually sent 3 down the alley, the side alley there, and they'll be able to trade to success. And I really like this as well because you can really isolate the angles well. Usually when players are playing back site and they have these 2 little archers to work with, it's unlikely that both players are going to be holding the same angle. So you're going to be swinging 3 people against 1 in this situation, whilst the other one is able to get another angle or to maybe take a 1v1. I actually like that approach a lot, especially as that you also gain ground more quickly onto the site that way. So pretty straightforward stuff here for the pistol. Do you like running Breach and Sova on Ascent. I think Breach and Sova on Ascent are pretty awesome. I think it's just because of their kit alone. I think it's two agents in which you would want to choose them, and you would want to just make sure you can figure out the best ways to maximize the efficacy behind their utility. For example, there's a lot of really good fault lines on this map. There's a lot of, I mean, the amount of flashes that Breach has is also very, very powerful for taking away angles and playing out your default on a map like this, taking over cat control or a main control. You know, both agents allow you to take a lot of control, and especially on the attacking side, that's super critical. And also on the defensive side as well, it allows you to make plays all around the map and be able to, you know, for example, if you're needing that. I mean, I don't have to go into all of the different things that Sova and Breach offer, I suppose, but I would say that on Ascent, a map which has a huge, it's very important to have information. Sova can get you information passively through his recon dart or his drone at any point of the round, and Breach can get you the information by helping you to take portions of the map. So you get two ways to get information. And as the defenders on this map, again, we want to think of it like Dust 2 from Counter-Strike. You really are hurting for information as the defenders pretty much all the time. And it's very easy for the opponents on the attacking side to take away mid control from you and to possibly take away A main or cat or B main control. All of these things are much easier for the attackers to do, I would say, generally speaking, than the defenders. The defenders can hold these areas or take these areas, but it requires more of an investment for them to make it safe. So Breach offers a great answer to some of those ideas, I would say. So for me, I think Sova and Breach are really, really nice on this map together. Right, so we can see Silence on screen here. He is on the Reyna for Sakura Storm. He's gonna have a really cool game here. There's lots of talking points around what he'll be doing. But moving into the second round, we've got an anti-eco setup coming in from the winners of the previous round, Sakura Storm. And what's really cool about how they play this is we just skip forward a little bit, we can see how the setup works. And they're going to be just giving up the A site entirely, relying on the Killjoy utility, and they're playing more of a retake setup on the B site as well, with Omen sort of dedicated at the back there. Because Omen it's much easier for Omen to get himself out of trouble, to be able to throw the paranoia up if they're rushing him down, and you can keep the Sova alive for the retake. Because the Sova recon dart for retaking is really important. So I like the idea that, unlike I think, a lot of teams that may say, okay, well, let's keep the Sova anchoring the B site, they're thinking, well, we really value that recon dart for retaking, and we've got a retake set up on A and on B effectively. The cool thing about the tree set up on A is that even if they have A main control, let's say, if Sentinels get the spike planted on A and they have A main control, if you still hold on to the tree position, you're in really good stead because it's very easy to deal with the A main post plant position. If you have, Omen still alive or some way of kind of blocking the vision off for that. And at that point, it's just the players on the side that are left. This is a really cool pick, though, from Shazam, really important one. Just walking in there and able to spot a player on tree does make things a little bit more awkward, but ultimately, it doesn't actually change anything for Sakura Storm. They still have two players holding tree. Their plan was still to hold tree. The turret is not destroyed yet on the A sites, and if that turret was destroyed, they could understand the players have moved in there. So they're able to hold these positions and just play reactively, but it's really, really cool as well for Silence that he's in this position where he doesn't really have to move very much. And that's really important because I just talk about this very quickly. The less you move, the less openings you're going to give up, right? So if you make a really big rotation, lots of things can happen during that time. If you're repositioning, the time it takes you to reposition is time the opponents could reposition and potentially catch you out somehow. But in this case, the pick didn't really mean too much, and Sentinels decided to reset the situation anyway. We can quickly follow their movement. Let's go back. We got the pick here from Shazam, and then they reset the situation entirely. And this is another thing about Sentinels and the fact that they're playing a defaulty style even on this eco round. They get that pick, they have the ability to reset, they've got the smoke that Zoms can throw through to mid, and they can go for the full rotation. However, they may not realize that Sakura Storm have full information, so unfortunately for them, it's not going to work out super well. And so long as they hold on to cat control, again, they don't really have to worry about much because even if Sentinels have reset to go fully towards B, the cat rotation is pretty quick compared with a rotation that's more dedicated on the site or in A main or something like that, or backside. So again, I just feel like Sakura Storm have all of their bases covered, and even though they lost this player early on to Shazam's Sheriff, it doesn't really matter that much because of how they've set everything up in this round. So I just felt like that was a really great way for them to play their anti-eco, and definitely a go-to, I think, for a lot of teams, because one of the things you're afraid of in the ecos is a full site rush. And in Counter-Strike, sometimes you just want to give up the plant because you don't want to allow them, using the swarm, the numbers advantage, all the utility they invest in just getting the spike down. You don't want to get caught up in that and lose players and get into a really tricky situation against the clock. You'd rather just give up the plant and then just keep all the money alive on your team and attack it together with just really strong retake positions. So that's how they prioritized it there. So on the third round here, we will get an A main take from Sakura Storm, and I think it's really, again, I think Silence on the Reyna does a really great job. He's going to get a pick that we don't see it on screen, but able to get the pick there, and they're going to be able to hear the running up catwalk as well. So this is very telegraphed. They had 3 players kind of deady A, as it were, because behind this aggression for the A main take. So they're in position to just respond to this and hold the ground. So once they get the sound cues, the question is, what is the reaction for Sakura Storm? How do they decide to play this? Do they decide to to commit again into A main, or do they decide to sit on the site? And they actually decide to just play 3 on the site because it's just the least movement possible for them. They were able to get Jet up onto the backside as well. And if we look at where does this go wrong for Sentinels, they're in a fairly decent spot at this point. So 4 versus 5. There's only 3 players on the A site that they have to worry about. They've got 3 coming up cat into the tree position. The cage goes down to allow them to possibly cross into the site. However, the initial pick there from Silence on the Reyna just stops them dead. It just stops them in their tracks, and they have to force their way through. They don't have the numbers really to trade effectively against all of the angles in the site. So, that ends up not working out very well at all. And again, you have to just credit Silence, who played really well because he gets the pick on A main as well as that initial kill on tree as well. So there you go. So going into round 4. This was one of the early games, yeah. So I think it was before they qualified, and on the round 4 we have Sentinels on Eco, and I think that this is going to be an unfortunate round for them. We will get the cage across. You'll see it on the mini map there. I'll go back again. There's a cage across from Dapper. You can see it active, possibly. It might be hard to make out on the Twitch stream, but he does that cage across quite often and will cam behind it, which will not only hide the cam location, and it would also possibly create a situation where someone could have crossed to the box, but they can't know for sure. So it does create some doubt and questions in the B main position. And so we'll see that cage fairly often from Dapper, and he'll actually decide to throw a pretty forward camera there, actually. In the meantime, we get the pressure towards the A main position. Sentinels on the Eco want to just send it through the A main area into the A site. In the meantime, we had a pick on Catwalk from Silence, who, knowing that he had the weapon advantage, is just using the confidence. And it's something we're going to see from him, which I think is important, is he knows that he has to be confident with Reyna. He has to take duels, he has to go for the 1v1s, and even against Sentinels, he's been doing a good job so far in actually picking up those fights. And that's actually a dynamic, I think, which can be intimidating. If your role is as a duelist and you have to be confident, you have to take fights, you have to win fights and take duels, and you're going up against a Sinatra, a Shazam, a Sick, all these really good players, that can throw some people, especially if you don't have the experience doing that. So it's good to see that that's not throwing Silence at all. And you can see just the retake coming through here. It's pretty systematic. Again, they're playing against an Eco, so there's not too much to talk about. Sentinels get pretty outgunned, and we can see again that Sakura Storm give up a lot of space towards the site when they need to, so that they can keep making sure that they're taking advantageous fights. They're not overly obsessed by preventing a spike plant. They don't care too much about that, as long as they can win with as many players standing as possible. So with that said, it's pretty fast doing doing VOD analysis with just one person, because you're just like, there's no one to respond to, and there's no one to interject or anything like that. I know last time we actually went an hour when just me talking, which was I feel like that was pretty unexpected. I thought it would be like 30 minutes and I'd be like, oh, I've said everything. But here we go. So round number 5, we get a slight switch up here for the offense for Sentinels. And it's going to be an interesting opening, because we have this arrow you're going to see from Sinatra. If you don't know this one and you're a server player, you should probably pick it up. This will allow him to get a kill with the ultimate, with the Hunter's Fury. And you can see the ranges so far that it's pretty hard to dodge the Hunter's Fury at this range. So he gets that pick time, and simultaneously, as he was getting that pick, we're getting also an aggression around mid from the Jet and from the Reyna of Sakura Storm. Now, this aggression, I think, makes a lot of sense, because especially given the sound cues you're getting, which is Sinatra effectively entering the B bomb site with the ultimate, that is very suggestive of a B main pop, possibly. That's, quite likely. So there is some burden on the defensive side, that an opportunity that you could take off of that information that there's a server ult going to be getting a pick, that you'd want to get information elsewhere on the map to see what's happening. So we get the play coming out into mid and to catwalk, and this time we talked about Silence winning some of his duels. This time he actually loses the duel to Sig, so that kind of changes a lot and really puts them on the back foot. And at that point, you're in a really bad spot. Any team worth their salt at the tier 1 level, such as Sentinels are, should understand how to play the 5v3 out perfectly from the from the attacking side perspective. So we can actually see how they abuse this. So this is right after the 2 picks. As we just reround a little bit, we've got Shazam, up in mids. He's gained a lot of ground and a lot of space towards Pizza and Market, so he can hold that pressure. And then at the same time, there's the Sova drone going through B main, pressure in B main. At the same time, Catwalk is getting taken. This can mean everything. So it's this. What do you do? What do you do if you're in this position? Usually, in this position on Dust 2 in Counter-Strike, it's a spot where you actually just have to make the decision to just peace out, basically, on one of the sites and just stack something, because you cannot know where they're going to go. It's fairly... And your chances to win the round is just so slim that what you're trying to think of doing is either saving or creating a situation whereby maybe you get lucky and they go to the site that you stack on and you get a favorable couple of duels, or they mess up the coordination, something like that. But, they're not really in a good position, Sakura Storm, to do that even. So they're just trying to defend and hold on to their weapons, and there's not too much they can do against Sentinels, who decide to go catwalk. And from this position, the 5v3, with all that map presence, Sentinels can do anything that they want. They really can. So it's not really needed to sort of break down a decision of going catwalk too much. It really just depends, what they want to do. And going mid, B splitting, A splitting, playing it slow, playing it fast. As long as they coordinate it together with all the map control that they already had won, it's all good at this point. So I think will Trill survive with that? No. So Trill does lose the operator. So another round there. Well, the first round actually picked up by Sentinels. So going into round 6, we'll have an opening whereby we'll get, I believe, so it looks like Dapper this time doesn't get his cam in the B main position. He throws the cage across, but he doesn't cam. And I think the reason was because of the Sova recon dart. I think there was. Let me double check it again. Yes, I think that's the reason. So he decided not to do that because of the arrow and the Odin. He doesn't want to risk getting slapped in the face by the Odin. And so that's unfortunate for him. Instead, he cams mid to try to deal with any pushes on catwalk that they know have been happening. And at the same time, we have the typical trips on Gelato and also mid link or B link. And we can see that there's a 3-player setup on the A site, and it's all around cat and tree. This is really cool as well. Again, it's just so reminiscent of Dust 2, honestly. The way that you can play like a 2A main, like 2 long and like 1 cat. It's just like so similar, the way that the setups can look and the rotations and stuff to Dust 2. But here, I really like this a lot, especially with Killjoy's utility, because you can really see if someone commits deep into the site because they have to kill the turret, because it will start shooting them in the back. And you can slow their approach down. You can see the way on the minimap, just about on the stream, how the nanoswarms have been placed by the Killjoy. They're going towards the door. So, most of the time you're going to be worried about them getting towards the door. If you have a setup towards tree, you can try to delay the plant. But I think what they would rather do is make sure that they can hold on to their position and also slow down the closing of the door. I'm not sure if in this round they actually broke the door, because sometimes teams will, pull it down and just break it so they can play the retake more easily. But here we go. We got the push will come in through A main. We've got the cat play coming in as well. So I think this setup is great. It's really fantastic for Sakura Storm. The drone goes through to the A site, tries to clear the site, and at the same time you can see it's the Reyna. Silence is in the most forward position. He's able to get out of this with a dismiss after the first kill on that angle, and he gets the angle back again and actually follows it up with another kill. So you can see he's playing with a lot of confidence, and this really creates a lot of problems, because the whole point of a split is so that you can remove the players from the tree position, so you can make sure that you have strong post-plant positioning. But given the fact that Silence is able to hold on to this position, if we go back and watch it again, it creates huge problems for Sentinels, because they have nothing to work with post-plant, as well as losing out so many players. And the breach shot's going to come in towards tree, but it's almost, I think only Omen gets hit by that. It's almost completely dodged, and they've completely lost their players on cat. So now they're in a horrible 5 versus 2 situation. So this cat setup worked out really well. And it just goes to show that, on this bomb side especially, retaking, if you want to play an A retake style where you put more emphasis around cat and tree, it's very viable. It really is genuinely difficult to hold against retakes when you only have A main to work with, and they have a lot of players left alive with all their utility. Because that's another thing to consider. Much like Counter-Strike, when we have a fast set piece coming through, that also means that all of the players on the defensive side have all of their utility still. So the ability to retake a bomb site early round, assuming the positioning and players are alive for the defensive team, is much easier than it would be later in the round. If all of your utility is exhausted, retaking a bomb site is much more difficult, right? So it's the same thing in CS. Like taking a bomb site in CS, the advantage and disadvantage, the way that works is very different depending on how much has happened in the round already and how much utility is left for the defenders. So round number 7. Okay, so we'll get a different look here from Sakura Storm. They'll actually decide to go for a B main push, which we haven't seen in this way. And I definitely agree with you. Thanks, Pock Esports. Just hit us up with an email, and we can investigate that. So I will not be casting any matches today, I don't believe. And Eddie and Joe, I definitely agree. I really like how Sakura likes to take aggression with Reyna and Jets. Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're going to see that here as well with their Jets. And it is so important on this map to just get that information and create that pressure against the other team's default. And indeed, you can see again on the minimap, the Jet will be pushing. They have the spike. Sentinels have their spike dropped outside of the B main position towards B link, and they're working on that mid control. They've got that A main pressure with the drone. So with what Sakura Storm, with what Sentinels have seen thus far, they have seen that there's no one A main. They've got full mid control, which is typical, and the drone is spotting and seeing nothing close in the A site. So from what Sentinels have seen so far, they can assume there is a catwalk or tree setup that they should worry about. In the previous round, what worked out very well for Sakura Storm is having 3 players playing the tree cat position. The difference here is that we see, obviously, there is the B main aggression. That's the difference in this round for Sakura Storm. And Jet's going to be spotted and dashes away in B main. So after that, that's some key information, because they've seen, okay, hang on, Jet doesn't normally play B. We've got all the information on the entire map that there's only going to be 2 players towards the A site at this point. So they're going to pressure the mid position. You can see that Shazam's able to deal with the drone, and they'll re-smoke this position as well. and they're going to start moving towards the A site. Now, great response comes in from Sakura Storm, from the Reyna Silence again. He pushes A main after the drone finished. So again, let's kind of recap this a little bit, because there's a lot of, in terms of the information battle here and the decisions that have to be made from a macro standpoint for both teams, a lot has just happened. And I want to just go through this again. Okay. The difference in this round is spotted when they see Jett dashing away in B main after a passive opening. Every round so far, pretty much, A main's been takeable for very little for Sentinels. Mid has been takeable for free. And it's usually catwalk where the players are sitting in the early rounds. The Jett is spotted towards B. This tells them that the A setup is lighter. However, they need to make sure that they have this mid pressure. This mid pressure from Shazam is super important, because what it does is it creates a question to the defenders, Sakura Storm, that Sentinels could be going B and they could be going A. That's what this mid control means, because it allows a setup for a split in either direction. And given that there's no cat control right now for the Sakura Storm team, they're in the dark, which is why at this point, with the information advantage being in the hands of Sentinels, Silence responds by pushing A main after the drone went. We can go back here. We can see the timing of that. He hears the drone. Drone just finished. We'll go back again. Drone clears everything. Drone just finishes now. Just as Jett spotted. And now we see Silence on the minimap going for the A main push. And during this time he's pushing A main, Sentinels are responding to that information about Jett, and they're trying to solidify their default effectively in their map control by this pressure on mid. In the meantime, again, you see on the minimap that Silence is pushing all the way to Gelato. This is so important. He's in a very forward position and off angle kills Sinatra. This changes everything in this round now. Oh yeah, Silence is super important in this win. So this just changed everything, because what they wanted to do is they wanted to play into the A site. We didn't have an ultimate or anything available for Sinatra, but he would have been able to do a lot of support from the A main position, and he had just cleared everything in A main. So now, instead of going into the A site, we get Sentinels making a choice to burst the tree position, because they don't have A main control. So they decided that this would be too difficult to get the site to recover A main and do everything else that they need to do. So they decided to just send it through tree towards spawn to B. This is the plan now. So this is very on-the-fly calling, based on the fact that Silence is owning the A main position. He is able to also catch someone moving up catwalk through to the tree position, and Sentinels are trying to fight their way towards that B site, which they'll manage to be able to get towards spawn. Dapper's going to get that ult popped, and at this position, this is actually a great recovery from Sentinels. A really good recovery thanks to Dapper and his 2 picks. And the only thing that they have to deal with now is they've got 30 seconds on the clock. So a reasonable amount of time, given that the spike is already in market. And they know that there's 2 players at A and there's only 1 on B. So this is what Sentinels know at this point. So Dapper can stay in spawn to delay the 2 players from the A site, probably get at least 1 kill with a good off angle. There's lots of off angles he can play with in this position. And with his teammates, they just have a 2v1. So they just have to play the 2v1 well enough and they'll be fine. So we should switch to Sova's POV here. Observer, but no. Orca will get 1, and that's pretty much all he needed to do. And now it's going to be a 2v1. So, and the trade happened in spawn, with Dapper. So yeah, it's just this is just to add insult to injury, the ultimate to just really secure this one. I really love the ultimate usage here as well, and Silence is able to nail it. So beautiful stuff here from Sentinels in adjustment. But again, as you said, in the chat there, Xclade, Silence is super important in this half here for Sakura Storm. He played super well. Now, going into round 8, we get an eco from Sentinels, and this is going to be one of the rounds that Sentinels actually win off of this eco, and it's going to be that I believe we'll see Sinatra popping the Hunter's Fury, and there it is. He's able to get his ult with the orb, and the Hunter's Fury will come into play. And you can see even on the ecos, this is being fairly consistent that Sentinels typically have their default kind of positioning where they had Dapper towards B main at the start, Omen towards B link. and everybody else towards A. There's the Hunter's Fury, gets the pick on tree. Sinatra with his blinds, Hunter's Fury picks, very famous for that. And Starlink's able to trade Cat. Another trade comes through from the Zoms. Suddenly, it's a 3 versus 4 for the defenders against the Eco. So this is a kind of an awkward position because this just relies on individual skill. You really need Trill to be able to do some work there from the Rafters position. And Trill pops the ult. I like this, popping the ult here, doesn't stay out, waits for his teammates, and they can attack together, recover the tree position together. I think this is a great call from them. If you get that tree position, you're able to kind of split onto the A site, have someone in Rafters. The defenders are really worried about Rafters. So you really want to be able to find a way to split onto the site, and that is why the tree position is so important. Able to clear Catwalk quickly as well. And this setup from Sentinels just, has to do it. And Zoms is pretty huge here. The guy with the rifle in his hand gets smoked off, forced to push through. The trade comes through, and fortunately for Sentinels, Dapper is a god, so he's able to pick this one up for them. So really close round, comes out to the trades in the end. But if we try to go back and see, where did this go wrong? Let's go back to the beginning of the rounds. I think it's pretty hard to really lay faults on anyone in this situation because, okay, here it is. There's the ult from Sinatra. So I wonder, does he actually get 2 hits here? I wonder. Actually, where does he do this from? I think he's going to pop the Hunter's Fury now. Yeah. You can see why he's doing it like he's doing it. So you can see where Sinatra is. He's by the spike. I don't know if you guys can see that on your screen very well, but he gets this line all the way up Catwalk and into trees. This is why he's taking this particular Hunter's Fury. And this is, you can see that he's pinged for himself as well, so he can line that one up, clearing Cat and also tree. So, they get this opening pick. The question is there a mistake after this? The problem is that Sunlinks, dies on Catwalk by himself for all the repeaks. And that's kind of a problem. And I think that's, if you really wanted to nitpick, you'd probably call out Sunlinks being over aggressive here. Given the fact that they have the weapon advantage, that you don't need to necessarily take another duel there. So that's really the only thing, because after he dies, they're in kind of a bad spot. And with that said, we won't go into that too much more. It was still a close round. So going into round 9. Yeah, I don't know how he has no name. It is Hacks. Clearly Hacks. Okay, so round 9. So we get the Cam and Cage on B main once again from Dapper. Obviously, 4 buy round for them. Been to a few of those. Nice little shock darts from Orca there. Dapper making noise, jumping around, caging, creating space, clearing angles. His teammates working fast up mid. So this has developed into a fast B split for Sentinels. Now, what's really interesting here is that there's a really important timing that helps Sakura Storm immensely. So a complete change of pace from Sentinels. This is brilliant because it can really catch teams off guard. If you play a slow default style, you are definitely going to be running into problems in some rounds when your opponent decides to take positions quickly at the beginning of a round. So, we've seen that, B main aggressions, A main aggressions, these kinds of things, even Catwalk aggressions can create problems if you're playing really, really slow on the attacking side and you're playing, players who are, playing individually on the extremities or whatever your default looks like. You can get caught out really badly by these small pushes. If you switch up the pace and your opponent's thinking, I'm going to do one of these early round pushes because I want to punish their slow default, and you do that, but they've switched up the pace on you, you can run into a lot of problems. If, let's say, there's an A main aggression with 3 players, the rotation's really far away to help the B side. If, let's say, they try to do a B main aggression, well, the push is coming through B main as well as mid. You could just lose the round outright in that moment. So there's lots of reasons why changing the pace can really throw a team off guard, because it also changes how effective their early round utility is or is not. So I wanted to I think it's always worth highlighting the difference of pacing. I think when you guys are watching pro matches, if you weren't already sort of looking at these kinds of things, make sure you kind of just think about how fast or slow is this team playing, because that sets expectations for their opponents, and then their opponents will respond based off of the conditioning of that pace. So, okay, back into it, and we see the push coming through. Oof, it looked like Sick almost had an angle there, but they will make their way through on this split, and something key just happened here. So with Breach moving forwards into this position, Sick on the Breach, he's in a pretty committed spot at this point. Not super committed, but he's pretty committed with the spike. Now, you can see that Omen right now for Sakura Storm is currently the tree position. I just went back 5 seconds. He is now TPing into the back of the B site. So there's now 3 players dedicated to the B site, and the problem here is that if Sentinels understood this happened and the spike was in B main, they might actually reset off of this, honestly. But something unfortunate happens and Sick goes down. I believe there was a Sova recon dart that gave away his position and he got shot through the wall, or they just know their angles. One of the two. Yeah, okay, I think that was just straight shot through the wall. So now they're pretty committed because they have to gain ground to take the spike, and they know the rotation's already coming at this point. B main was the escape plan if they wanted to reset. So now they're committed into a site where there's 3 players on the site, and they're worrying about the 2 players from behind. So this just turned into an awful scenario because of the Omen TP and because the Sick went down with the spike in market, or just outside of market. So this is one of those things which just went horrifically wrong for Sentinels, that you can see they're in this spot where it's like, how do you play this scenario? And from this position, given the spots that Sentinels are in, Sakura Storm don't have to do anything, but they do actually try to push. And when I first saw this, I was a little bit worried for them because I'm like, I don't know if you should be pushing in this situation. Sentinels are in a stalemate with you, a losing stalemate, effectively. I guess that's not even a stalemate. They're going to lose from this position. They cannot go anywhere. But they will get finished off. So that was another thing that just went really, really badly wrong for Sentinels. Subpad is doing stuff. So going into the next rounds, it is round 10. So here we're going to see the A main aggression coming from Sentinels. And we talked about this before. We've talked about this general idea as, on the defensive side, you want to be taking aggressions on a map like this. You're hungry for information. You're hurting for information as the defenders. And this is one way to do it. And obviously we're going to see the not the best situation in the world here coming out of Sentinels and their equipment. And there's a small challenge there as Sig tries to pick up the orb, which gives him the breach ult, which he is then able to use, possibly. However, I think he was about to use it, but the issue is that they just lost 2 players straight away. But this is, a save round for them. So, there's just not too much that can be done at this point. He cannot use the ult at this point. It would be a waste. And they're just being outgunned. So, off of the initial exchanges, because of Sakura Storm's aggression, they're able to put Sentinels into an unworkable position. As you can see, Sick is even just stuck on a stinger here, so faced by 4 people at once. So pretty good cleanup. Again, it's just off of the benefit of Sakura Storm deciding to go aggressive there. So round 11, and Sentinels do end up winning the last 2 rounds. So let's see what they do to try to to accomplish that. We're going to see that the typical dapper pressure on B main is going to occur here. We're going to get that cam on B main, and we're going to get that mid pressure as well. Slightly faster pacing from Sentinels. The drone clear through market. They have the smoke of CT just next to pizza, or between pizza and CT is smoked, and they can fall back off of this. So what this again usually does, this quick mid pressure, or this mid pressure in general, you can see that it has to be respected. So on Dust 2 in Counter-Strike, and again, I'm always going to draw, man, Silence is 20 for 3 right now. That's actually mental. What a beast. On Dust 2, it's really important to pressure and take control of mid and catwalk. Because when you do that, what happens is, suddenly when the CTs lose those spots, They don't know whether you're going for a B split, which is very dangerous because you could hit that really quick from that control, or if you're going to go for some kind of an A split or A maneuver. It's pretty ambiguous. So, but what they kind of have to do is respect the fact that you can do any of those things. So what teams will typically do is they'll rotate a player off of the A site into CT spawn. If you're familiar with Counter-Strike, you'll know what I'm talking about. In this, what we're going to see the version of that in this game. If you watch Omen on the minimap, he has to rotate to CT spawn, because if they just walk through spawn, that's a huge problem. Also, he needs to have the ability to have the info for his team as to if that is happening or not. Very important information. So it weakens the tree defense. It weakens the cat defense. There is now no flash available to flash the entire enemy team as they move in, because Omen's over by mid. Now, as a response, again, Silence he knows what he's doing in terms of his game sense. He's pushing A main because they're hurting. Look how spread out the defense is around A, and you know how just difficult it would be to hold anything. But Silence goes forward, hits a weird timing as they're all moving in, able to get a quick pick, and he can dismiss away. Huge. That extra information gets Omen just that little bit quicker to the rotation, and the Empress gets popped by Silence, who's absolutely feeling it in this game. And what's really cool here is he doesn't try to hold the site or a main. He plays with his teammates in the tree position. The breach hole obviously is going to create problems with that, but you know it's a really good response so far. So 3v3 after all the kills are exchanged and the tree control is broken mostly by the Sentinels team. They get onto the site. It's a 2v2 after these trades. And this is just about the clutch. And if you consider the fact that, like, one of the rounds the Sentinels won was a thrifty and in a similar situation, and they're going to be winning this very close round that could have gone either way. This could have been so much worse for Sentinels. It really could have been. Oh my god. Very nice. Dapper with one bullet left after that. Just barely nails it. So that's the third round for Sentinels, and into the last round we go, and we're actually going to get a pretty awful start here from Sentinels because Dapper gets punished pretty badly for placing the cam. We'll see the cage, wants to place the cam, has to break that. He stays there, but there is an Odin, which will remove him from that position. And one of the things here is that did Dapper see Silence? Because Silence is not playing towards cat or A main as he typically is, but he's playing towards B main right now. And yep, he has no idea that he is there. That's pretty bad for Sentinels in terms of the information game, because they may be working off of some different assumptions. So you can see right now with the movement and where the spike was, that a B split is actually on the cards here for Sentinels. And given the fact that Silence is already still on this site, that's actually a huge problem for Sentinels. Now, even if you're playing to a disadvantage in this game, it may not be the worst thing in the world. You can still win those rounds, but it's just you know, you just don't want to be in those spots. If you can avoid it, you want everything to be as easy as possible for you. And it's certainly not as easy as possible with Silence sitting on this site that they're going to attack. And you can see he's able to pick off Sinatra. That's the spike. So now the question is, how the hell did Sakura Storm lose this round? That's the question, because they're going to lose this round. So now, you know, being in a 3v5 position, they've got this mid control. The spike is down in B main. I don't know if they know whether or not the spike is being sat on. That's a possible issue here. And you can see that the rotation's coming through 4 players on B right now, because Sakura Storm know that the spike was in B main. They don't have any control on B main, so they're going to have to reset away from B at some point, because they have to respect that the spike could have been picked up and rotated all the way around. So you can already see that there is some movement here across. Now Trill will be just checking for the cross into market from Pizza, and the resmoke and the recommit into the B site, using the positions that they already had. Stick able to get the initial kill towards the right side, and then the left side of the site is also, you know, picked off as well. So Sentinels just hitting this timing, which it seemed to have somewhat caught Sakura Storm off guard. They lost 2 1v1s, and now it's a 3v2 for them. And sometimes it just comes down to those 1v1s, and that's what's happened in this case, and they'll steal away this round too. But again, if you think about it, like Sentinels really were far behind in this round. And the way Sakura Storm have been playing, generally they haven't been giving up stuff like this. They won a round which was the Thrifty, which was really close. And the previous round that they just had won was also super close. And I think it's fair to say Sakura Storm had a lot of the correct reads for the situation. So ultimately, Silence did a great job. He had really good game sense. He got his 1v1s, and quite a few of the 1v1s that he won in this game were 1v1s whereby he found a great timing, and he caught his opponents by moving into an off angle, like going deep into gelato. He got a couple picks like that. He managed to get picks in mid. He managed to find these really favorable angles. I think it definitely is the case that he hit his shots, but he did also set himself up well to hit those shots. And I don't feel like there's any spots where I could feel like he's overextending or really abusing his mechanical ability and just really leveraging it super hard. It felt like he took the right fights pretty consistently and the fights that he was supposed to take, and he didn't take anything more than that. So yeah, massive kudos to Silence. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on him as a player, moving forward. And I guess I can keep playing the VOD here, but that's kind of the, I guess the prognosis is that Sakura Storm actually played a really great game, and a lot of it, as you say, did come down to Silence, but he was set up pretty well across the board, and it's hard to really. It's always very difficult when you're analyzing the defender side of this map because you're not able to, like the attacking side, really take the initiative in any which way you want. You never know what you're walking into when you're playing aggressively on the defensive side, but you kind of have to do it. So there is a gambly element to that, whereby you can get kind of lucky on which rounds you pick to push where, because you can never always be correct. And especially in this game, it can be very difficult to read where the good aggressions should be. And especially in tournaments like this, where you cannot prepare for all of your opponents and you can't be studying all of your opponents when you're playing so many. And so, for a team like Sentinels, it's very, very difficult to play against teams like this. So they're individually very well put together. So yeah, super impressed by Sakura Storm. They do end up winning this map. But, the reason why I wanted to look at this half, well, the first half, was because winning this map comes down to getting that 8-4 advantage off the bat. And especially as you can see here, because then you pick up that pistol and, you're off to the races at this point. I need to do some research. I don't know if I recognize Silence's name because I've just been in esports for so long, and you start to see some of the same names, across from different games sometimes, and then you get a bit confused if I'm just, having an elderly moment in that sense. Or, do you guys know about his backgrounds? Because it would be curious to know if he's like a first-gen Valorant player or something like that. It's always good information to know. We can see his perspective here, just, popping off and doing all the damage. That was stolen. 100% kill steal right there. That was actually a really nice drive-by arrow from Sinatra. And just spraying, running backwards and spraying, getting a headshot. On it, that happens to me all the time. Like, I feel like that happens in this game so much. I feel like it happened less in CS, that people can just like run around and spray whilst blind and just nail you. But I feel like it happens more in this game. Definitely infuriating. So yeah, you can see there's already a 10-4. So really this is one off of that pistol that they just played, as well as the success in the first half. But that's why we play best of threes. So you can mitigate the variance. Which I think is an interesting talking point to an extent. Trillis from Overwatch, yeah. I think, in this game is really interesting because I do wonder if the format will ever change. Because think of it this way, right? When you play a game of Valorant, just much like a game of CS, we have the, match rounds, and they're pretty fixed. But why could it never be the case to say, let's just change instead of having a best of 5 finals, let's have a best of 3 finals, but it's MR15. So you basically have more rounds, because having more rounds, all it does is decrease variance. The more rounds that there is, the less variance that there is, to a certain point. there gets to a point where you play so many rounds and then the fatigue starts to set in. The amount of strategies that teams have starts to, that they prepared for that match and so on, they start to have to recycle stuff and things get weird. But if you can find that, if there is a sweet spot, or maybe there's some kind of a sweet spot, I don't know. But I'm wondering if ever there'll be a decision between, do we do that best of 5 finals, or do we just get more match rounds and just do like a best of 3 with MR15 like CS? I don't know. I don't know if there's, I haven't really ever heard people talking about that. I think people mostly just assume that the match rounds will always just stay the same. But ultimately, like, I don't see why, that can't be a discussion. I think in this game too, it's from a narrative point of view, it's actually nice to have the MR12 because when you're trying to describe how a game went, MR12 seems to be the case where it's like, okay, on both attacking and defensive side, there's this narrative that seems fairly clear as to the approach of the team, like or both teams. When one team was able to adapt to the other, that point in the match, and then maybe the response to that. And maybe that's, happens like a couple times in a half, and then that's it. So that's pretty easy to kind of understand and see that narrative. I know that in CS, what could happen is that over like really long matches, you could start to lose some of the narrative because each big turning point is less important in the great scheme of things if there's a lot of them, right? So having a few moments as opposed to, 12 moments of adaptation, it becomes a lot clearer to know where a team won or lost from a narrative storytelling perspective, as well as, the players you want to highlight and the preparation and so on and so forth. So it is an interesting, give and take in that sense. Yeah, I'm actually liking Icebox a lot. I haven't been able to play it too much yet, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what the best teams do with it. I'm interested to see how the long rotation times that are complained about, how that impacts things, given the way that the map is. Because the map feels very, like it could be really fast-paced, given how, open some of the, like how many angles and how open the spaces are towards some of the sites. It feels like, let's say if you go to the B site, you can get people really fast towards that B site because there's so many lanes and there's quite a lot of space once you get through the initial chokes. So yeah, we're about to hit the hour. So if you guys have any other questions or discussion points or things you want to quickly talk about, I'd be down for that before we close things down for today. Back in place, yes. Gotcha. Whatever teams, it kind of depends. I know that a lot of people really like the 100 Thieves match. Typically we do these VOD reviews every Wednesday, so it can be hard to know which match to pick when there's been loads of games played. It's like the opposite problem, the opposite end of the spectrum, where before we're like, oh god, there's not been any tournaments for ages. What games do we pick? Like we're going to all the different regions to try to find interesting stuff, and now it's like, okay, there's too many games to pick. So I don't know whether or not we may throw in an extra VOD review or two, which I think is definitely on the cards, definitely an option to do that, and that could be something that may be a solution to that, or whether it's just doing a poll. I think a poll would be a good way to do it. Maybe just get a straw poll out on Twitter, get a few games that people have been recommending or really want to see. I don't think TSM lacks a good IGL. I think they've got. I think. Who was it? Who is IGLing for them right now? I think it's I want to say it's Sabrosa. I'm not sure if they've changed anything. Is it Color? Oh, it's Color. Okay. Was it like Sabrosa? Why do I think Sabrosa? Did he do it for a tournament or something? Hey, oh, okay. So I basically missed out. I forgot that it went away from Sabrosa. Okay. Yeah. I think it's interesting in this game too because there's a lot of. I think that you need a team that can have multiple IGLs. Not that you want multiple IGLs necessarily, but I think you want multiple players that can see the game from that perspective because there's just so much happening in these games. You've got to adapt a lot. You have to be able to read the game super well, and like an IGL in a lot of cases. I guess it depends how replicable their results are, Jim Boy. This is another thing in this game that I think that is important to remember, that results need to be taken with a pinch of salt, especially with new teams. For example, we said this with the Andbox victory in the Renegades Invitational. When a team kind of breaches that threshold into the tier 1, or they've somehow got the limelight on them and they're playing really well and creating all these upsets, there's always a question there as to, in a game like this especially, where the element of surprise is huge. Is that what it is? Is it that teams are not used to playing them, that their style is something that creates a lot of unpredictable moments that a team needs to adapt to, or is it that that team has not been studied at all by anybody, or there's no risk because there hasn't been the respect there yet because they haven't gotten the result? Like there can be so many different reasons why a team can really fly under the radar and surprise you and do well enough to win a best of 3, especially because in this game too, the mechanical advantage that you can get to win games is less than in CS. I would say. I think it's the general consensus. In CS, like if you're going to be playing against NRG, even if you're strategically throwing loads of stuff at them that they haven't seen before, they have so many god aimers and players that are so insanely good mechanically and fundamentally that they're going to win. It doesn't really matter. They're going to win, most likely. And yeah, I think that's a very important consideration too, as you mentioned, Space. Like the play styles, that's actually something that's also really interesting in this game, is that there's so much more deviation between two teams in terms of the, just by the notion of compositions. Even if the play style is similar, if the compositions are different, then that just really changes everything. So yeah, lots of things to think about in this game with regards to matchups that doesn't exist in CS, which I think will make things from a broadcast perspective, as we get, more production value and, we get more and more investment going into that, we get lands again. I think we're going to have some really compelling tournaments to watch, just because, especially, if you look at the flow of the broadcast, let's think about how a matchup might start. There's less matches in general anyway. Teams are more incentivized to hide things from other teams. So just that alone means you're going to see things in big important matches in that you're not going to see except in that tournament. So that's really sick, because there's also a lot more stuff that you can do to mix it up in this game. So there's more options to do that. Secondly, because those teams will be playing each other on a less frequent basis, because we don't have the oversaturation like we do in CS, you're not going to see Astralis playing, Na'Vi every 5 seconds, right? That's not going to be something that's going to happen. So that's going to add some more weight and to it. And because there's less tournaments, the tournaments will mean more. So that's going to be, even stronger for how, exciting the narrative is. And teams will have more time to prepare for each other. And then, you go into the broadcast, you've got that history. You then have maybe a draft process. That's going to be super interesting. You go into the maps with MR12. So as we already discussed, like MR12 has a really big benefit on the narrative, the strength of a narrative, like knowing why a team won or lost. What are the bigger moments? You can very easily recall what are the really important moments in a game. That's unless there's like many overtimes, but then that's just really compelling anyway. And I think stuff like that's going to make it super exciting. Honestly, I think that formula for a broadcast is going to be really good. I have to look at the game for it, but I do think Vipe is really strong, and I like the sound of it, but I need to see it in action. I did miss that. That makes sense, Bulk. All right, guys, I will jump off because it is time to go. We've done our analysis, but with that said, I should probably host someone. So let me see who is out there to kick a host to in the Valorant worlds. Let's have a look. Who is out there? Anyone from the Immortal Minds fam streaming? Let's have a look. You guys have any suggestions? Definitely open to it. For the host, where do you guys want to go next? Wardell is streaming. Jason R. Average Jonas. All right. Rod TV it is. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We will be live on Saturday with the next Immortal Minds episode. I hope you enjoyed this VOD review. If you missed it and you want to catch it, it will be on the YouTubes. And also, if you missed the big announcement last Saturday, we are now a podcast too. We're going to be uploading every single Saturday show to all of the podcast platforms, Android, iOS, anywhere that you get your podcast, you'll be able to find the Immortal Minds Saturday show episodes. And so get on the subscriptions so that you can take advantage of that if that's something you've been waiting for. I know that a lot of people have been requesting that, so I'm super happy we finally were able to make that work. And that is in partnership with Prediction as well. They're helping facilitate that. So thanks a lot to them. But with that said, I will see you guys on the next one. Enjoy Fraud's stream. Ciao for now.